beautiful, artistic, intricate. A few of the most common words I've seen thrown around when describing the world building of Avatar: The Last Airbender. In a story with such diverse characters, one of the most recognizable elements of this world is the cultural divide between the four different nations, each with their distinct ideas, narratives, and architecture. The one thing I really love about the buildings and locations is how they not only act as backdrops, but they illustrate the themes and cultures of their respective nation. Taking inspiration from real-life buildings from many different countries and cultures, the architecture allows the audience to immerse themselves in a world that feels almost real. In this video, we're not only looking at the architectural elements of each nation, but we're also going to be delving into the cultural inspirations, real-life counterparts, and the significance behind them. This is analyzing architecture. The Water Tribe features a distinct architectural style through the use of ice as a primary material. Although they fall under the same nation, we see a major disparity between the Southern Water Tribe and the Northern Water Capital, not only through culture, but through their use of architecture and landscape. Here's an example. While the North emphasizes on water as a means of transport and functionality, the South, due to their lack of benders, is much more grounded in their way of life and the construction of their buildings. Focusing on the location of the Southern Water Tribe, we see a striking parallel with the Inuit igloos located in Greenland and Canada. Not only is this apparent in their architecture, including igloos and tents, but also through their clothing, which resembles Inuit parkas. The relationship between the Southern Water Tribe and Inuit culture extends beyond just physical appearance. The choice of igloos in particular illustrates a handmade and labor-intensive craftsmanship that dates back thousands of years. When we look at the Northern Water Tribe, we see grand and precise structures of ice that can realistically only be made by a waterbender. But the practicality of igloos tells the audience that the South can't rely on waterbending, but instead a traditional construction practice involving densely packed snow. Like the Inuit community, the Southern Water Tribe based their traditions on strong family ties, sharing resources, and a focus on hunting and gathering. While the South is represented through a community of small igloos and huts, the North contrasts this through its grand and fortified city. Looking at the location of the Northern Water Tribe, we see parallels to not only one geographical context, but three. Analyzing the elements featured in the northern structures, we see a strange yet elegant mix of Hindu, Italian, and East Asian architecture. The center tower that sits within the heart of the Water Tribe reflects Hindu temples, symbolizing a sense of grandeur and a feeling of divinity. Looking at some of these precedents not only shows a close resemblance to Indian architecture, but also reflects the cultures that surround Hindu beliefs. The Northern Water Tribe's divine connection with sacred and spiritual beings such as the moon and ocean spirits closely resonates with the Hindus' worships of the deities and their authority over nature and human life. The multi-tiered roofs that accommodate the buildings imitate East Asian pagodas, providing a traditional look and a functional piece that prevents snow from piling on the rooftops. The use of canals and boats is very reminiscent of the Italian urban design featured in Venice. It's quite clever as it provides a practical yet aesthetic solution for transportation in a frozen environment. In a way, it reinforces the Northern Tribe's cultural identity and connection to waterbending, an element the Southern Tribe lacks. We can once again see different variations between two major cities when examining the architecture of the Earth Kingdom. The Earth Tribe's use of earthbending is quite prominent through their structured material, as well as through the use of the rock landscape. Comparing the two major cities of Ba Sing Se and Omashu, a few elements separate these two locations. While Ba Sing Se utilizes its urban fabric and layout to maintain order within the city, Omashu instead uses its landscape as a defense mechanism against external threats. Being one of the first locations characters travel to, we are introduced to an enormous and heavily fortified city elevated on top of a mountain. Just from hearing that description and looking at the landscape of Omashu, you'd think a place like this only exists in fiction. Featuring a unique topography, the city utilizes its mountainside to its advantage, not only through its buildings, but also through its delivery system. The structures showcase traditional Chinese elements through their construction, as well as advanced technological systems. Machu Picchu is a citadel located in southern Peru. What's so interesting about this place is how the builders during the time were able to adapt the space within the unusually sloped landscape. What this precedent and Omashu have in common is how they're both able to utilize the mountainous terrain as a means of defense and agriculture, showcasing a form of advanced stone engineering that connects this fictional city to reality. The live-action Netflix adaptation of Omashu was actually inspired by medieval India, and we can see this through their many forts which, like Machu Picchu, utilize an elevated mountainous terrain. When designing Omashu, inspiration can be clearly seen through the stone construction of these forts, the sophisticated urban planning of the cities, as well as the steps that in a way resembles the show's delivery system. And similar to King Bhumi, medieval India was also characterized by its monarchical governance and rulers. While Omashu follows a culture of advanced engineering and innovation as a means of defense, Ba Sing Se provides the same security through its culture of imperial hierarchy and control. The fictional city takes direct inspiration from Beijing, more specifically through the Forbidden City, and we can see similarities when comparing the style to Ba Sing Se's buildings. When analysing the site plans and comparing Ba Sing Se's defensive walls to the Great Wall of China, both serve as a means of defense and control over the population. Both cities feature a structured plan that separates the land of agriculture, the common people, and the upper-class court and emperor, as explained by Zhu Di. The relationship between Beijing and Ba Sing Se extends beyond just physical appearance, as a comparison of the two cities somewhat reflects the class divisions and the illusion of security in China during the Qing dynasty. Ba Sing Se's government control of information and enforcement of strict social orders mirrors Chinese historical practices of maintaining control over the people. Understanding this, we can better differentiate Omashu and Ba Sing Se's architectural styles and the distinct strategies implemented to uphold order and security. Unlike the ice structures of the water tribes and the stone walls of the Earth Nation, the Fire Nation's architecture doesn't always implement firebending within their structures. However, their combination of traditional Asian and industrialized elements emphasizes their powerful military and advanced technological presence. The structures in the Fire Nation cities present a traditional East Asian style, much like what we've already seen from the previous nations. However, the capital features prominent elements of Chinese, Japanese, and Thai architecture, from the royal palace, to the Fire Nation schools, to the common buildings, all of which closely resemble the visual appearance of both Southeast and East Asia. The resemblance between the Fire Nation buildings and Edo-Japanese castles sort of expresses an imperial rule and centralized authority presented in both cities. While the Edo period was defined by stability and peace, the castles were originally constructed as defensive forts and shelters, some even eventually turning into military camps in World War II. While this reflects the Fire Nation's transition into a military and imperialistic power, further similarities can be seen between the Fire Nation soldiers and the samurai warriors' appearance. All the nations take some sort of inspiration from East Asia, as you might have already realized. But what makes the Fire Nation unique? Southeast Asia, specifically Thailand, is another country that inspires the Fire Nation's architecture. This influence also extends to some of their traditional clothing pieces and armor accessories. Returning to the visual detailing, the decorative carvings and the roof's ornate design are taken directly from Thai architecture. While Japan has a common traditional use of wooden and stone construction, we actually see a palette that consists primarily of stone, ceramic tiles, and metal. Not only does this resemble Buddhist temples and structures in Thailand, but can also be a clever design element, knowing that firebending and wooden structures probably wouldn't be the best combination, essentially rooting this culture and pride of firebending within their nation. Definitely the most unique structures out of all the nations, the air nomad temples are defined by their serene and majestic structures, which are usually situated in high remote or mountainous regions. Its emphasis on East Asian style temples located in contextually remote areas emphasizes the air nomad's connection to spirituality, nature, and of course airbending. All the different air temple locations feature their own distinct identity. However, they all share some common themes. The style of construction, the materials used, and the implementation of open courtyards that weave into nature resemble Tibetan Chinese architecture. The most prominent theme common amongst all the temples is their mountainous locations, which imitate the secluded and quiet environment of both the Chinese forest and the Buddhist monasteries. The choice to integrate the air nomad temples in these high areas not only makes it accessible only by airbending, but also signifies the air nomad's closeness to the heavens and spiritual elevation, similar to the Buddhist monks. This isn't the only time we see a connection between the two communities. Both dedicate their lives to spiritual practice, meditation, and the following of Buddhist principles such as compassion and harmony. Not all the air temples are located on elevated mountains. The hanging structures of the Western temple are as such. Not only does it still reflect real-life Buddhist temples, but it also once again reinforces the idea of the air element within their culture. Both the shows and the real-life examples, in a way, defy the laws of gravity whilst also being realistic enough to exist. The use of open courtyards present in all temples allows the airbenders to practice their bending techniques as well as facilitate gatherings similar to the monastic community, essentially using various Chinese and Buddhist construction elements to present the concepts, traditions, and teachings of spiritual monks within the airbenders' lifestyle. I think what makes the locations of Avatar so interesting is its ability to enhance the storytelling and themes of each nation. Although it may not have been something considered by the writing team and background artists, I believe it speaks volumes about how the history of architecture can be taught and interpreted through different forms of media. It would have been so simple for the artists to just copy and paste buildings from Asia, but the combination of real-life cultures in a fictional world not only provides awe-inspiring visuals for the audience, but also tells us about the different nations' cultures and narratives.